recording.
Yes, got it. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Good morning, Hadar and Ola.
Right.
Yeah.
Hadar.
Hadar.
Hello.
Thank you,
Hadar.
Hadar.
Yeah.
Yes. I just went on the list and I know quite a few people on the list, but I was like, I don't want to. I'm going to pick people I don't know. And Ola and I had this amazing conversation because we had so much in common in our research. We talked a lot about her being an interpreter from Russian to Polish, and
yes,
and that pre-conscious space you get into when you improvise, and she's in that space as an interpreter. What else, Ola? If you were to catch the bar up. You were just talking about how.
I have a lot. Yeah, sorry, there's a delay. Yeah, we were talking that this is the really the state, which is similar, the state of the interpreting and translating and in improvisation. Is this? It's more or less the same because you are using this that the everything what you have like in a bag, like a past. Also, you think about the future, but you have to be really in the middle to have this streaming and to have this all links to just flow into your mouth and go out. Yeah.
That's
And
so
we were
beautiful.
talking. Yeah, it's really nice. When I was like doing my college, I mean studies, I didn't thought that it's gonna like really helps me in this work. So yeah. And we were talking about your Nina, your university and the way you work with the people and the fussy baby and all those mm, movements methods you have and you developed. Yeah.
The rewire work.
Yes, the rewire work. Yes.
So we were talking about how, to interpret it, it would be too slow if she had to actually think, oh, this is Russian, now this is Polish. It would slow down too much. So you actually it's a place we talked about trust, right? Or that you had to just trust it at some point because it's too slow not to trust it.
And no fear, the no fear state. It was like no fear state. Yeah.
And I think that's what when we improvise as performers, that it's so similar. I find it's very similar. So, and I was thinking this morning as I was soaking in my tub, how I recently was in Poland and recently in Israel. And I lived in New York for almost 20 years. So right on Broadway in Houston. So my loft was, I started off in the Far East Village before it became what it is today, which meant that it was cheap. So anyway, I have this kind of geographical connection with you all.
Where in Poland are you?
I live in Warsaw last 14 years, but I'm from the south of Poland. But when we talked to Nina on Sunday, I was in the south because I was performing. My performance was because we also I'm very glad because we are now in Poland in we call it a yellow zone, so it means that like only 25% of the audience can come into the performances. Many of the theaters are just closed. Maybe we're gonna have, I've heard today, like since from Sunday, maybe we will have red, which means that everything is closed. I mean that, of course, theaters, not city, not the centers like shopping malls. No. But theaters, yes.
You have
I have
to,
to
Stores,
make
the
sure we
most,
can keep shopping.
yeah,
Yeah.
the most dangerous places, you know, theaters and the operas. So yeah. So yeah, but according to Connection, Nina, I was like last year. I was first time in my life in no, no, second time. First time in my life, I've been to States in Dallas, Texas. This was my first time in USA because of my previous job. Please don't ask me. And the last year, in December, I've been thanks to Joanna Leśnierowska and Art Station Foundation and also Movement Research. I've been to New
oh,
York my first time in my life. So and
fantastic.
I almost been in Israel on the workshop in March, but it was cancelled because so a bit yes connection.
Mm.
Have you been
Mm.
to Poland, Hadar?
Yeah, I came to art stations twice, one
Wow.
in 2016 and then in 2017.
Mm.
Um, in the US right before the 2016 election, and then a year in. But it was fascinating to be there then because there's also a lot happening.
Hmm.
And Poland, it was right before the Brexit vote also, which, you know, was really affecting a
Yeah.
lot of the
Mm.
Polish folks who were there.
Yeah.
And so it was just like everything was so out in the open in Poland in a way that it became very quickly open here.
Yeah.
Uh, so I felt like I got a premonition, you know, being in
Mhm.
Poland. And I was there with another person for movement research, Andre Zachary, and his perspective was,
Hmm.
yeah, it's just kind of seared in my mind going to like a rally. I think it was in commemoration of the folks who died in the airplane crash. Well,
Hmm.
you know, the president who, you know, I just it you know, it was my first time in Poland, and I have
Hmm.
family that left Poland in the 1920s.
Hmm.
And I got to go visit that village afterwards. I went to
Wow.
Krakow, and to Żarki is the name of the small village that
Hmm.
my great grandfather is from.
What is the
Uh,
name of the village? Could you repeat?
Żarki, Żarki.
Żarki. Żarki, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Then I
nice.
think the nearest big town is Częstochowa.
Częstochowa. Okay.
Yeah, so outside Częstochowa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so
Where
that was
where did
very
your people
powerful.
go? Where did your people go when they left Poland?
They went to Palestine,
Okay.
to Israel, Palestine. Well, it wasn't Israel, yeah, it's Palestine.
Mm.
Uh, yeah,
And were you
so
born?
it was very powerful. And right after that, I was born. My family moved a lot while making many children. So I was born in Argentina,
Oh, okay.
but
Ooh.
yeah, but it was like we went to Argentina during my mom's like eighth month of pregnancy. So I really feel like the sounds and the things that were nourishing me
Hmm.
in utero for 8 months were very powerful. You know, and my so that grandfather or great grandfather, and then my grandparents founded the community that my parents grew up in, and where they lived, and left just before, literally like a month before I was born.
Wow.
So that's like very deep in my body.
Mm.
Um, even though I only lived in Israel for 5 years.
Hmm.
So after that, we came to the States, and we've gone back and forth some. Um, and right after the visit to Poland, I got to go to Israel, Palestine, um, and it was a very, yeah, it's just like it felt like a very powerful pilgrimage to make.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow. Yes.
so, yeah, and everything that you're saying about like trust and no fear in our movement practice. I don't know how does it relate exactly to this story, but it was just very powerful to come into your conversation about that. And I often think, I think this moment has like the pressure of this moment has brought up, you know, people like in New York being like the epicenter of the epicenter, and like March and April, people leaving, people staying. It was bringing up all people's like traumas of like being left behind, or like, you know, like martyr syndrome. And like, you know, I've always like thought about this, like this faith that my, you know, whatever I even though I'm in a different place in my thinking about Zionism, like their faith to go, their trust to go and start a completely new trajectory in their lives just required, I think, tremendous trust.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Well, and
yeah.
I would imagine, you know, the incentive, you know, it's sort of like, well, this place isn't good and it might get worse. You know, we have to trust that trying to move is going to be good for us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And of course, a lot of the Europeans that settled in the United States were that was the same thing. They were often the poor or the persecuted. A lot of religious sects, Christian sects came over here because they were persecuted, which is why I think in the United States we have more Puritanism than in that strain of Christianity is still quite alive here. Yeah.
And why, you know, it's like there's a lot of traumatized white bodies here. You know, people who like fled pretty atrocious conditions between, you know, amongst white people, amongst, you know, and then, yeah, bringing that here.
Yep.
Something I've been thinking about.
Well, not to mention the traumatized Black bodies and brown
Right,
bodies.
well, that's what I mean. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the trauma is definitely present. I was one thing sort of poking around and trying to learn about you all. One thing that impressed me was how it seemed that you all use what you need to use to do your artwork. Hadar, the text and song and dance, and it's the same with you, right, Ola? That it's performance, you use whatever you need to use to do, so it's not like pure dance. And I'm teaching a choreography class right now, and you know, I have to say to my students, what is dance good for? You know, what does it do well? And what is it, because, you know, they're young and they want to tell stories with their dance. And I'm like, I think the movies have got that covered now, you know? Or why don't you just say what you want to say? And just trying to get them to see, you know, the efficacy of dance, and where when it tries to do something that really it'd be better just to say something than to dance it. I was just thinking about that, and how you all have this sort of multidisciplinary approach to your work. Did you always have that, or did you come to it, or I was just curious.
Actually, I always have, especially like using the voice in my performances. I remember when I was like teenager, and I was dancing in the disco group, the biggest in my hometown. But then there was like competition, a choreography competition or something, and I have something in my mind and I want to do a solo. And I remember that after I did it, it was like I was using also voice, but also I wasn't dancing like in their way they thinking it's dancing, because to me dancing was also like to just walking through the stage, or how do I touch. I remember that I have some, I don't know how you call it, but something when you put the water into it, but the big one like in the villages. I don't know how it's in English, but I mean kind of pot or something really big, and I have it in my performance. And the way I put it on the stage, the way I touch it, like to me it was already movement, like to me it was already dance. And I remember after that, like people asked me, what have you did? Like, what do you think you are doing? Why you are showing this to us? Like, I mean, it's not a dance, it's not a choreography, like what you are doing. So I was like, and in my head I have the same question to them. Why do you think it's not a dance?
Mm,
Why do you think that the dance is only like the structured steps? So I think there was always this like attitude to something, and also like I have like feedbacks from my last week. I was performing improvisation, and I talk a lot. I talk a lot of, but to me, talking also to making the stories, it's also kind of movement, because it's like voices from the movement. It's like one thing, but also how my body support the text. It's already like to me the movement. And I
mm,
have like feedback from one person like, I miss the body. And I said, what do you mean? Because I don't get it. I do it exactly as I need it to support the text. And so this is like something what I sometimes I cannot explain with the words, but I feel it like that way. So this is in my
mm,
practice, like this. Yeah.
You were
mm.
born a performance artist.
I don't know. I don't know. My mother said I supposed to have a normal job. It means like a dentist or a lawyer or I don't know. But maybe, yeah. What to do?
I
Mm.
think maybe all of us are born that way, but we might be shuttled into more narrow kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I really resonate with what you said about the movement and voice being so connected. And I think I feel in a funny place to talk about my work right now, because I feel like there are some big shifts happening and how I'm thinking
Mm,
about work and the things that I'm, yeah, the ways that I'm thinking about it. But something that was said to me, or like feedback that I received early on, was like, oh, that when I was sounding, when I was singing, my body was very clear. That
Mm.
that it seemed, and that the movement was coming from the sounding. And I think, I think I came to sound like singing and text. I come from from two kind of regimented lineages of dance, of like ballet and Israeli folk dance, which is actually very codified.
oh.
Mhm.
Um, and I think, singing and text were things that were not prescribed, that I was not expected to do. And it was a way to really kind of feel choice. And I also have, yeah, to feel like my voice more clearly as I was working through the body. Like I felt like I needed to work through the body.
Mm,
Um, but I took a break from dancing before I like started making my first pieces, and it was like through text and song that I found my way into dancing again.
Mm. Mm.
And then because of the, oops,
no.
um, y'all are propped up on my little prayer book. Um, um, I don't know, I'm like in a place right now when I'm much more interested and open in like my unconscious and like the wisdom that is in movement.
Mm,
And I think for most of the time that I've been making work, it has would maybe start from that place. And then early on, I would be like, okay, well, what is the content? Like always feeling like there had to be some rational or political content that was happening in tandem, or, the way that I analyze like movement or like stories being like social and political. And so always like finding a way that I could legibly tell those stories, partly also because people in the US don't necessarily know like the movement references that I am making or the political references that I'm making. So text also felt necessary. And it's like you said, it's like it felt like, well, what do I want to convey? And so image and text and became necessary, but then also a way to play, to have a conversation back with the traditions that I was in conversation with. Or like have conversations back with videos of, codified dances. So it was a way to like bring a world that like the social context of the dances that I was doing was very present in my home and in my mind, but is not very present to the audience. So it was a way to bring people into that. Yeah, but now I'm like, this period of time of like really feels like enormous shifts are happening. And I think I've always believed in the wisdom of the body, to recover and to heal and to channel. But maybe haven't like fully trusted that the body can do that without text, without context, without, these other layers.
It seems that given this sort of turbulent time that we're living in globally, and it doesn't look, I don't feel that hopeful about it changing anytime soon. It seems like as artists, this ability to bring these different disciplines to the work might be a helpful ability now to be able to communicate on these through these different disciplines. That the world, like you said, that in the United States, you needed the text to fully maybe explicate what you were trying to do, or not explicate, but communicate. And maybe it's still true even on a global level. I don't know. I mean, did you all hear at the beginning of this grand reunion the phrase, "Can choreography save the world"? Or did you all hear that at the beginning? I guess it
was that part of the
yeah, I've heard. Yeah.
The dramaturgical note that we read together.
I'm not sure. It's just like when it first started coming across, it was something about can choreography save the world, and I was like, wow, that's such a almost naive, romantic, beautiful thought. And I said it to my friend the other day, she's a videographer, and I said, well, something, like, can choreography save the world? And she went, no, say no, and tell them no, it can't. But maybe performance, the concept of performance, and we know it has, great effect.
I think, yeah, I feel like, not all choreography, but I think like the endeavor to be in our bodies and to feel more and to connect more, those things do change the world.
Yeah. It's somehow related to what we also talked, that somehow like relation to yourself, because it's like when you work with the movement, you start to work like automatically with your body. So then the kind of partner you have, it's already you also. So if it's in this way, when you see this relation and when you really work on this relation, it somehow have this reflection in other connections. So in this way, I can say that it can somehow, but I save the world. For me, it's like, to me, this save the world. This is the more, how to say,
Well,
what does it mean to say? What does it mean to save the world? I mean, and what kind of world? And this is really like something really wide, which only gives me like another questions. But maybe this was the point. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's like the save versus change. I mean, we have so much like savior syndrome as white people, or as, I don't know, as like women, or, you know, I just feel like, but that that change, you know, like change. If I, you know, if I just change that save to change, then I'm like, oh yeah.
Hmm.
And like if I didn't believe that, it would be, you know, if you don't, I don't know that I would be able to keep going doing this. And I also think like that there, like there's change happening on many different scales, you know, that we can participate in all the scales of, you know, and just like, I don't know, if you think about people coming out to the streets as choreography and coordinating and
Oh,
like
yes.
that is changing things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
we in my first trio, we talked about the choreography of protest and and how I I was in high school in 1970. So, and I was protesting Vietnam War, and I do feel like we stopped the war. There was enough protest that and enough exhaustion with this war. Plus, it was the first war in color. So the blood was red every night on the TV. But I felt very, very empowered as a 18, 19-year-old. And for the last several years, I've been thinking, like, why aren't people on the streets? You know, the Occupy Wall Street. I was like, oh my gosh, it's happening, you know, and so it was just amazing to wonder what the catalyst could be to get people on the street. Where for me, it should have, I was thinking we should be on the streets, you know, long time ago. And it is, I have to say this, it's not right, but, and also we're in COVID, but you know, it does take the young people to do it. It does take the young people. Um, so anyway, it's been extremely gratifying to me to see this mass choreography of bodies. Um, that's been very encouraging. Very encouraging.
What is it like for you teaching right now?
Well, it's good. It's hard. I'm teaching remotely, but I'm living in far West Texas in Marfa. And it's a very beautiful place and a good place. I moved here about 20 years ago, but I teach in Fort Worth near Dallas. So it's all remote. And for the most part, it's pretty good. I mean, I'm actually teaching this, you know, beginning choreography class, and the students are like, oh, wow, I thought this was just going to be check the box, but I'm actually learning so much. And I'm like, oh, wow, yeah, I can teach choreography remotely. And then I'm teaching dance theory, and that's more of a discussion-based course. So that's working really well. Teaching technique, dance technique, I do not like that at all. It's difficult, I think. But anyway, but yeah, so I love I've always been a teacher, and I'm enjoying it. I kept myself out of real academia for many years because I didn't want to give up my time to. So I taught at NYU at the Experimental Theater Wing for like 12 years, and then I taught at UCLA, and I was just an adjunct for like 30 years. And then finally at 55, I cried, uncle, and I went in, I got, finished my PhD and went into academia. So I have a salary now, and it was a huge relief to get a salary. So I'm like 13 years into my academic career. And most people are retiring, and I'm like, well, I got in so late, I've got to keep working. So, but I enjoy it very much. Very, very much. But it takes my time, and I'm in a group called Lower Left Performance Collective. And well, Shelley Center's with us. You probably know Shelley.
Yeah.
And,
Oh, Shelley.
and I'm trying to work on with with the collective to we do something called ensemble thinking and the rewire work, and it needs support, it needs to be written about, and so I'm pulled between, you know, the academic job and my research. What about you? How are you surviving in New York City? It's not easy.
Yeah, I'm fortunate that I'm teaching remotely a lot. I work with mostly middle schoolers, tutoring them for their bar mitzvahs.
Wow.
So I teach them how to chant, and you were talking about, and you know, and they don't learn necessarily to read the Torah, but they do get to embody the sound of it. And I
Yeah.
feel like that's also powerful. So that's what
Yeah, it's a
and
beautiful,
that's how I'm supporting myself.
beautiful ceremony. I've been doing it too. Very nice. Very nice. Do you teach, Ola?
I have only two kind of regular classes. One is for seniors, and it's more like a gymnastic and dance combination. And the other is like I have workshops sometimes, and I give workshop. It's mostly improvisation, sometimes contemporary dance, but mostly improvisation now. But I do it like from time to time. I don't have like something really regular. The only things which is regular, like last 6 years, it's my classes. Yeah, it's my classes for seniors, like twice a week, and I love it. I love it. They're a group almost 20 women, and the oldest one is 86 now, Eva, and she's really, I love them. Like I have 20 mothers, you know, mothers, aunties, or I don't know how to call them, but this is really strong, and it really helps me in the in during COVID. We have like a lockdown, like and for 3 months, some of them especially learn how to use a computer to have Zoom classes. So 9 of them just learn how to use it to have the classes. So I really admire them, and they're really, I want to be mentally in their age.
Oh wow.
Really, really.
I hope so.
Like they are just like, we want to, and they are really regularly coming twice in a week. So they said we just want to feel good, and we feel good after your class, and that's it. This is, they do what they really want, and I really admire this. They really know what they want, and they just follow it, and this is, mm, yeah. And I want to say, if I can say, thank you, Hadar, also to your contribution to, because I've read the text, affirmation for resilience.
Oh
And
yeah.
I really got, I wrote down two things which are which I think about it actually, and I also said last time to Nina that there was like, one is I will not refuse rest, and the other is I will center most marginalized voices in my work. And I realized that this is the same, that the resting, and also what I mentioned before, the relation to my body, not only as an instrument which gives me, which has to be ready, which has to work, you know, which has to be just the instrument for the work, like to give it really like this, mm, like to like it. I mean to give this yeah, this rest state sometimes, and to do something really good. Now I'm in the kind of state of mind that I really believe that my relation to myself, it's really crucial, and it's like it needs to be really good relation. If I want to only on this, on top of this, I can build other relations, because if this something is here, it's like in the basement. If something in the basement, there's a water and rats, you cannot have a good house. Yeah, yeah. So thank you for this. I just need to focus on it more. So yeah, yeah.
It's
And,
nice to hear.
and I think, you know, changing ourselves changes the world, but then I also, the fact that we're all working with these different age groups, these different populations, I think that's also sort of this this way of connecting to people that also, by our engagement, we are communicating values. And I think that's, sometimes it feels like it's not that much, but then maybe I think it is, because we've all been working on ourselves as human beings, right? And it seems to, I think it makes a difference if you meet people that might be affected by you, and change the world. I know in my teaching that it is about it is about transformation, you know. um, that's impressive, though right now it feels like nothing is adequate for me, the hopelessness I feel. So but having these kind of conversations, we were talking, Ola and I, and my first trio conversation, I really felt energized and enlivened by connecting with people that I don't even know, and then we're talking, and there's so much in common. So they don't want our conversations, or not, they don't want it, but the conversation should be about this long. So
Okay.
is there any, I thought maybe we could do like a 30-minute silent meditation to finish, unless you have something else you would like to offer.
I just wanted to say what you said about us working with people and education, that is actually so key to transformation. Each of us being engaged with that, with the people that we are connected to, is part of the transformative work.
Yeah.
And as I'm like, do I go out into the street, or do I talk to my student about reparations? That both of these things are incredibly important. And teaching my student how to talk about reparations,
Yes,
is as important as being on the street. There are so many different roles that we need to play. So
it's true.
Yes.
It's true.
Actually, this is true. Actually, Hadar. Now I think that, yeah, that my talking to the seniors, especially that we have like in Poland, like different. No, we have like strange time. It's in the political way and the other way. And I think to go to the senior and to sometimes show them like different perspective through something, like through just meeting, this is also a huge job, which is not maybe so visible outside, but it's really on the basics. So yeah. Yeah, it's true, Hadar. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. And thank you, Nina. I'm really glad that we met,
thank you.
three of us.
Yeah,
Oh.
I just feel also like the college period for me was such a amazing period of being open and changing in my life. It's like such a, yeah,
What college
like to
was
be
that?
able to. I went to Sarah Lawrence.
Oh, okay.
But I love your offer of meditation. I think that would be a beautiful way
All right.
to close.
Let's go for it. Thank you. I hope to see you all again. I hope to see you. Hopefully I'm in Poland next summer. and I'll see you. And I haven't been to New York in a while, but I want to be there. So hopefully we'll cross paths. Thank you all so much for joining
Thanks so
me.
much.
This has been wonderful.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you for choosing us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Coincidentally, but
Yeah, it's been wonderful. It's been
Yes.
wonderful. Trust, no
Yeah.
fear. Trust, no fear.
Yeah, this is really good affirmation.
Yes.
Mm.
Adios. Peace.
Thank you.